All right, we're back in the tea room. That's looking pretty good. Probably should have done my hair, but that's all right. All right, boss man is probably close. What's up, everyone? Tonight's episode is going to be a little bit different to a normal one because normally it's just shit posting and shit talking, but tonight we've actually got a legitimate guest, Chris from Worrells, who specialise in voluntary administration. And me and Hendo are going to have to attempt to be serious for a few minutes because it's a serious topic and that's going to require some effort. But hopefully it's useful to people because there's a lot of it going on in the beer industry at the moment and a lot of confusion around it and not a whole lot of reporting about it. So we figured we'd get someone on who knows about this kind of stuff. And me and Hendo, well, actually, Hendo seems to know quite a bit about it. I don't know a lot about it, but Chris hopefully does. So this should be an informative episode, but there's also a bit of shit posting and shit talking as well. So more of the usual. Here he is, the boss man. He's coming in hot. All right. Coming in.
Hello.
There he is. Hello.
Dark again. Jeez. There we go.
There we go.
Better.
Lighting
What's
issue.
happening?
How am I looking? I'm too oh wait, that's what I remember. I need to do this one.
You need to put the light on. So
that one. That better?
It's a little better. You need
I don't have an
in...
actual light.
No, you need a light that's sitting in front of you though. Go to the content creator section of JB Hi-Fi. Yes, there's a content creator section of JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
And get like a little ring light or something in front of your laptop.
Yes. Okay. I will do that.
Not that anyone watches this on YouTube anyway.
Well,
All the people who want to bloody complain about us watch us on YouTube anyway. Fuck it.
No, not last episode. The one before, we got quite a few on YouTube. But I think it was just because the Spotify episode was the wrong episode.
Oh.
So we got a few on there, but generally we don't get a whole lot. But that's a story for another day.
Well, that's the place where we get in trouble.
That's true. That's true. We don't get in trouble on podcasting or Spotify or...
No, it's only YouTube.
Only YouTube.
Anyway.
I liked your post in the group this afternoon.
I've got big news. What did I say? Did I say big news? Because
I think you said massive news.
Yeah, well, it's big. That's a very much a version of big.
Yeah, no, it is.
We should have a beer first.
Go on.
Tension. I'm going to do something a little bit fucking dumb.
All right.
So I've got my stone and wood glass here.
What sort of millage are you working with on that?
It's not a schooner, and it's not a pint. It's Schmitty glass. And then also in celebration of VB coming out with their 6% version of VB.
Oh no!
I have regular strength VB.
Oh wow! Wait, what? What's going on with that can?
That's how it looks now. They changed the branding to name it after Valtteri Bottas.
What are you talking about?
Have you not seen that video?
I've seen the video. What am I looking at? Why is it all cut off? What am I missing here?
That's just the modern look of VB. It's not your dad's beer anymore.
That's how it actually looks.
That's how it actually looks in a tin.
They chop off their logo.
Yeah.
Are you fucking serious?
That's how it is. You can see it.
Is that a label?
No, it's a printed can.
What the fuck did they do that for?
Look at that. Look how fucking clean this glass is, by the way. That's my stone and wood glass.
I'm so confused.
Clean as fuck.
Screenshot. Nice. Well, my beer is sort of in the spirit of what you're doing.
And what's that?
So, well, not really, but coincidental. Erin went to her parents' house for dinner the other night. She sent me a photo of all of her dad's beer glasses and said, "Do you want any of these? Because they're really cool." And then I said no, because I don't like collecting shit because we've got way too much shit already. And
but you got the whole dantion to fill it up with shit.
Came back with some anyway. So I've got
it's old Foster's glass. Good honour.
Came back with a Foster's one and a 4X one, and left all the rest.
What size is that?
It's a schooner.
Very tall schooner.
It's a pot. It's 285, but it's got 285 written on it. So
yeah. Do you want to see my big news now? What are you drinking, by the way?
Well, it's a secret because it's not sponsored and it's Foster's.
You're actually drinking Foster's?
Well, I mean, can we just say I'm drinking Foster's? Can you get a photo of this?
It's a bit hazy for a Foster's, isn't it? Hang on a second. I got it.
Nice.
There you go.
Man, Foster smells very good these days. Glass smells a bit old.
Is it a bit one of those hazy Fosters, is it?
It's the new Fosters, higher ABV and a bit of haze. All right.
Wonderful.
So this massive update, are we going to save it for the end of the show or are we going to drop it like it's hot right now at the start?
Well, no, we've got a guest, so we have to get this done.
That's true. Yeah.
So technically, I should have said big news, not massive news, but it's still big.
I could check. You might have said massive. Big, I mean.
I probably said massive.
Okay.
Right, so there's two parts to it.
Right.
So firstly, my scooter exhaust arrived.
Oh, wow. That's sick.
How cool is that?
That's so cool.
That's handmade in Italy.
What?
It's handmade in Italy.
That's amazing.
This is the thing. I think I finally found my mojo when it comes to buying scooter parts.
Okay.
Just don't fuck around with Chinese stuff. Just go straight to the Italian stuff because they don't dick around. And this is a Leo Vince handmade TT sports exhaust. And it's got this little thing in here, right, for the Europeans that doesn't count in Australia, that if I take it out, it goes faster.
It's like a catalytic converter or something like that.
Yeah, don't even worry about that. Australia, we don't care.
Rip it out.
And the other part, is the big bore kit.
Oh, nice.
Let's have a look at this, man. It's so cool.
This is an unboxing video.
This is an unboxing video. It's absolutely. So there's the ASMR on the video.
Yeah, go deep in it, go close to the microphone. Lower your voice a bit. I can't even hear you anymore. Did you press mute? What the happened?
So there you go. That's the cylinder there. I've got the pistons sitting inside. I've already put the rings in because I'm very excited.
Wait,
and then
they give you the whole cylinder?
Yeah. It's the cylinder, and the cylinder head goes on like that.
Wow.
And then you go and just go fast. Oh, and it's also got some other cool stuff in it as well, which I'm looking forward to. But there's a couple of reeds here for the reed valve. I don't know if you know how two-stroke engines work. Oh, I've got to show the Molossi logo.
Nice.
So reeds for the reed valve, carbon fiber, of course. And also, there's a small end bearing.
Nice.
Right. You know what that's for?
Small end bearing.
Yeah.
Do I know what that's for?
It's for the fucking small end, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know.
But small end.
Right, yeah. What is that? That connects to the...
It connects your connecting rod to your piston.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway, no bad girl bloody phone covers. No nothing. It's the real deal.
How much would you expect to pay for these two pieces of equipment?
That's an excellent question. I think the big bore kit was 180 pounds, UK pounds. This came from the UK. And the
Jesus.
Oh, shit. And the exhaust, sorry, I dropped it. Oh. That fucking works now. So it's 180 pound for the big bore kit, and the exhaust was about $600 all up, I think.
Oh, that's not too bad. I would have thought it cost more than that even just to ship the bloody exhaust here. Is it actually from Italy?
Yeah, it's actually from Italy. I bought it from Italy.
That's intense.
Because if you could buy an Italian scooter that's made in Vietnam, all the performance parts come from Bologna in Italy.
So how does that
way
affect the
better.
time frame?
Mate, it's March, totally doable.
Okay.
Except probably not much is going to happen this weekend because Juicy Festival's on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I've seen nothing about that.
It's on Saturday. Oh, they're running a thing. I think they've got some deal going. If you buy a ticket to the evening session, you get a free ticket to Gabs.
Oh.
I think something like that. I might be wrong, but yeah, if you haven't got a ticket for Juicy Festival, definitely get a ticket to Juicy Festival. It's very cool and totally worth going to because it's in my opinion, one of the best beer festivals in the country because it's a good size. Maybe only 1,000 odd people go to it. Fortitude Music Hall.
Good venue.
2 sessions. And you pay like it's $145 for a ticket, but you don't have to pay for any beer in there.
Yeah.
Right? And so because you don't have to pay for any beer in there, there's no transaction going on. There's no queues for beer.
Yes, I like that.
Right? And all of the brewers from all of the breweries around the place, you know, last year I saw just brewers from Rocky Ridge and I think Banks are going to be there this year. So all the hype breweries and stuff like that. Garage Project will be there. And yeah, it should be really good. So
I've literally heard, I have not even seen this.
Yeah, well, you know, go get a ticket.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm officially.
And so if you're one of the 12, right? You should. This is one of those times you should wear your Boss and the Brewer t-shirt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And if you wear your Boss and the Brewer t-shirt, and you see me, come and tap me on the shoulder, show me that you're wearing your Boss and the Brewer t-shirt, and I'll pay for your next beer at the festival.
Oh yeah, that's a good deal. I like that deal.
It's very generous.
Very generous. All right. So, that sounds fun. So you're going, right?
I'm going a day session.
Okay. I'm definitely not going. I've got my kids this weekend, but that sounds fun.
Go to Gabs then.
So we've got, what have we got on tonight's episode? We got a few things happening. Oh, well, let's talk about, so Chris is coming on at 7:45, he said, which is 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Yes.
Can we talk about the F1 results? Because I need to clarify if I win this.
Right. Well, apparently we did all right, according to Adam Shell.
One of us did. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Here we go. Chris is here. Oh, no. Okay, we'll have to come back to that.
Okay.
All right.
Who we got? You better introduce our guest then.
Yes. So Chris works for a company called Worrells, which specialize in voluntary administration,
and liquidation.
And in liquidation, he advises on that. So I don't know if this is advisory advice, or
well, we can ask him.
No advice, but let's find out.
So the reason why we got him on the show is that because in the industry we've had 3 voluntary administrations in March. We thought it'd be a good idea to get someone on the show who actually does the voluntary administration as their job. Not to talk specifically about any particular VA that's going on at the moment, but rather just to educate people about the process.
Yeah.
And take a lot of the emotion out of it, because I've seen too many emotional people over these situations over the last few weeks. Fucking hell, my God. And so if we could just educate people on the process, perhaps it would help people to better understand what's going on, so that we can all be a happy fucking industry all over again.
Sounds good. And you and me have the challenge of trying to be serious for one episode, which is at least
we did it when we had we did when we had what's his name from Thingamajig, Virtual. Okay.
Yeah, reasonably. This is a serious topic though, so let's not make any jokes. Okay.
All right, send it.
We're bringing him in. And shout out to Angus, who works with Chris, who kind of messaged me and hooked this up. So
Yeah, awesome.
That was nice.
Hey, Chris, how you going?
Hey, gents, good. How are you?
Very good, very good. I'm Hendo. Have you met Dan before?
No, I haven't.
Oh, thanks for joining us on the Boss and the Brewer podcast. It's really good to have you with us this evening.
No, that's no worries.
Tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
So I work for a firm called Worrells, and what we do is specialise in exactly what you guys were talking about, I think, in your last podcast, about insolvency administrations and things where companies and people have got to that situation where they can't pay all their bills. And so we come in and I've been doing it for, 24 years now. We come in and try and get an outcome similar to sort of scenarios you guys were chatting about on Ballistic in your last podcast, to try and keep businesses going, keep people employed, keep the product out there. But of course, giving advice when sometimes that's just not possible too.
Can I ask, we've pledged to be only serious this episode, but can I ask two questions? One, before we start. One is, what's happening? Wait, one is, do you have a beer?
I wasn't sure if this would suffice.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm drinking a VB, mate.
Can I get a screenshot of that?
Beers out of the same brewery.
No. I've got a Black Ops Pale Ale.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You played the game.
No, wait. This is in the fridge for my old man when he comes over. That's
this is in the fridge. Well, I should reveal my secret beer now.
Oh man!
Right. Sorry, the next question
years.
was
That's a bloody long time to be doing administration and liquidation and stuff.
Yeah, it is. It has its ups and its downs. That's for sure. You're sort of in a situation where nobody's happy. The directors have got a business that's failing. The creditors are owed money. The employees may or may not lose their jobs. So it is challenging. But we just focus on trying to get the best outcome we can for everybody.
Does that play on you sometimes?
Oh, you build up a tolerance to it. You have to. So you've got to remove the emotion. No different to a doctor that's dealing with a traumatic situation. They've got to get into the game phase, and we're the same. And we certainly try and do it with empathy. We really try, because you've got to remember, this is a lot of people hopefully have never been through it and won't see it again. So you try and do it with empathy, but at the end of the day, you've got a job to do. It's as simple as that.
What was your question, Dan?
Hendo will probably ask more questions than I will, because he's a bit more knowledgeable on this than I am. But I guess my first question is, when I read, and we're not going to get into specifics, but when I've read information about these VAs, like the document they put together basically says a whole bunch of things the company's going to do, in order to kind of get out of the situation. In your experience, like, and when I've read them, it seems like a whole bunch of things companies should be doing anyway. So, like, in your experience, is when you're going into a company, going into VA, are you doing the things that you think they should have been doing anyway, or like, is it sort of founders not doing what they really should be doing, or are you having to come in and just be super aggressive and doing things that reasonable people wouldn't do?
Bit of both. So, for example, you could be in an industry, say construction, which is really struggling at the moment because the prices are going up 20%, and they're stuck where the prices are going up faster than they can put their prices up. So you might have a situation where it's an external factor; it's out of their control. Or they might have had a big customer that owes $100,000 and that hundreds of thousands, and that goes down. So in those situations, they might already have good practices in place. They've just had an unfortunate event. But then the other one, particularly in the brewery industry, it's breweries and cafes, in my mind, are similar, where people have this lifestyle belief of what it is. They think it's easy when it's not. They think you don't need the experience when you do. You guys know all too well how that works better than I. So the people that sometimes jump into these with a bit of a sea change, I suppose, they quit their normal day job, which they were very good at, and they jump into something that perhaps is a bit out of their depth, and they haven't done business plans. The amount of times we see a cafe open up and there's three within a stone's throw, and you're thinking, well, what's your point of difference? What's going to make you better? So yeah, in situations like that, the amount of times have you got a business plan? They haven't even done that. And that's a big step. How much is it going to cost you? All this sort of stuff. And that's just talking to your accountant. That's talking to your lawyer, the people you trust and the people you know. to set it up from the outset. So yeah, we do get into those things, which is a little bit frustrating because often they've got a bit of coin behind them. They've got some money from a payout of the last job and they lob it in and then that runs out. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I thought we'd be doing better by now.
Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head as far as like breweries go and that sort of thing. It's very much, you're absolutely right. It's there's a lot of hobbyists that I speak to, you know, in my role as a brewer coach and that sort of thing, who have these dreams and aspirations of opening a brewery, but not much understanding of things like FMCG, because all of a sudden, you know, you're not, you know, people think that you're going to be sitting around the brewery drinking beer all day, but what you actually are is a food manufacturer.
Mm.
And the reality of that is very, very different to the dream or the vision that some people would have in their head. And even from the outset, not having an understanding of the type of brewery that you want to be can make a massive difference. And I often ask people when they start out, what sort of brewery do you want to be? Do you want to be a brew pub, or do you want to be a brewery that sells beer into, you know, wholesale liquor venues, that sort of thing, you know, bottle shops and pubs and Dan Murphy's and stuff like that? And without a focus, I suppose, on or an understanding of the ramifications of going down one path or the other. Because if you choose to go down the path of being a brew pub, well, now you're a hospitality business. And if you go down the path of being a beer selling into the wholesale market, well, now you're in the FMCG business, just like orange juice and toothpaste, you know, and selling beer on very small margins on very long credit terms. And that in and of itself is very problematic. And so case in point, you know, this year we've had 3 VAs in the brewing industry in as many months. And I think it's frightened a lot of people in the industry. So can you explain what voluntary administration is and kind of how it works and what's supposed to happen? And
yeah, for sure. You pretty much hit the nail on the head last week, Hendo, in your last episode when you're talking about it. I was quite impressed you could take my job. You knew your way around it quite well.
You listen to the podcast, you're one of the 12.
But I said this is not voluntary administration advice.
This is not advice.
That was my disclaimer.
Advice.
Nor is mine. No, look, the idea is simple. No one goes into business to fail, of course. And usually when it gets to the point where they can't pay all their debts, the directors, they're stressed to the max. They don't know where to turn or what to do. And you're looking down the very real situation is if they don't do, they've got this fork in the road. They can't keep going down the road they're going. So we'll sit down and we'll have a chat with them and say, look, tell us your story. And they tell us their story. And we'll give them some options in that point. And one option is to do nothing, but that's invariably going to fail at some point. You're not addressing the issue. We sometimes look at other strategies. Can you sell your business? Is there someone that might buy you out and that gives you enough funds just to move on, for example? We'll look at the Armageddon, which is close your doors and liquidate. What's that look like? We'll have a chat about that. But then you get into the voluntary administration. And that's where the idea is you get a break, you get a breather for 4 or 5 weeks. Normally it can be different, where this administrator comes in and the directors work with the administrator to come up with a plan. What's the plan going to be that we can get some of these creditors some of their money? And what's the plan going to be to keep this business going? That's the goal. And they've really got a choice of, well, we either do that and can we make that work? And I'll get back to that. And if we can't, we've got to shut up shop because we're going to rack up more debt and cost more people more money. And we're going to lose everything if we haven't already lost everything anyway. That's that fork in the road. And it's quite a scary position to be in. Your life's hard work for some people in this fork in the road. But what is most important is getting someone external to come in and have a look at it. And that can be their own accountant. It doesn't need to be. And in fact, the one thing I'll say more than anything, directors get stressed out and they'll jump online and they'll be 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. in the morning when they're not thinking clearly, and they'll jump on some stupid Google ad that'll take them to some bloke that reckons he's a professional in a trade, and he'll fleece them of all their money and give them bad advice. Go back to the people they've trusted for the last 5 or 10 years, their normal accountant, their normal advisor. Don't run off to these fly-by-nights that don't give a damn. That's really important. Go back to the people you know. But the idea is have the accountant or someone that, an expert that they recommend come in and look at the viability of the business. What's it going to take to make this business work? And that's going to be hard decisions and not pleasant decisions. So some of them are going to be, you got too many staff, we've got to fire the staff. And the directors themselves, they don't want to fire their staff. They've got a story with them. They've been on the journey. They might have been there from day one. But if they don't, the business fails potentially. And that's just one aspect of it. You've got to look at a whole range of issues. And it's not easy to make that call. So the voluntary administration process gives an outside party to come in, have a look and really work out, can this business make it? And if it can, what kind of proposal can you put up? And it's going to be cents in the dollar. In most instances, but not always, in most instances, creditors will not get all their money. But what's the lesser of the two evils here? And it puts the creditors in a bit of a predicament. Do I take 40 cents in the dollar, get almost half my money back, but help support this business and have an ongoing customer for the future? Or the alternative is they shut up shop, I get probably nothing, and I don't have a customer for the future. And that's not an easy decision to make. I don't suggest at all it is. In the voluntary administration, that's the end goal. You'll get to a situation where you'll put that position to the creditors and the meeting of creditors that you were talking about, Hendo, and the creditors will decide whether they want to support the business or not. But they are going to, in almost every case, not all of them, in almost every case, they're going to miss out on some money. That's going to happen.
How does that, on that sort of creditors meeting, who makes the decision in that meeting? Is like who gets a vote? How many votes do people get?
The creditors. So the vote comes down to the people who are owed money. To get it through, to get the proposal through, the vote's taken, and it's a majority in number of people voting. So if there's 10 creditors voting, you need more than 5, so 6. So 6 have to vote in favour. And the same with the debt, majority in value of debt. So if your creditors have 100,000, you need $50,001. If you get both of those, it gets through. If you only get one, and you're stalemate, if you only get 1 and 1, the administrator has what's called a casting vote. They can jump in and they can pick a side. And they will do that based upon what they think is in the best interest of creditors, because they will have done a big investigation. They will have produced a big report, sometimes a complicated report if the structure like ballistic sounds like, I know nothing about it, but it sounds like a fairly complicated administration. And you were talking last podcast about how some of the people were showing up to these meetings and they walked out of the meeting, they're not even sure what happened at the meeting. Yeah. And it is complicated. And it's our job, hopefully, to try and bring that down so it isn't complicated. The law is very complicated, and we're sort of in the middle of trying to simplify it for the people that are voting. But at the end of the day, they control the vote. So if all the creditors, quite frankly, are a bit unhappy with it all and say these guys have shafted us, they've got to say they can shut the business down or liquidate it, and then probably it'll get shut down. I was not aware
that there was 2 ways to count the vote. I thought it was purely around dollars owed, not number of people.
Number of people as well, yeah.
So what if you've got a situation where, say, you're a brewery and you owe like almost all of your money to the ATO, and then you've got like thousands of really small creditors for like $50 an invoice, and the ATO is saying, no, I'm not going to take 40 cents in the dollar because it would send a bad message. But everyone else is saying, yeah, fuck it, I'll take my $25. You as an administrator could say, no, ATO, you lose, we're going to take the deal.
We actually have to make the call. So in exactly that scenario, we have to pick a side. So we can, if we pick to go with the creditors that have voted for it, we give our casting vote, it gets through. Or if we pick not to participate or not to use our casting vote, then it fails and the ATO wins. And what we'll fall back on then generally is we'll go, well, what's in the interest of general creditors? If we can see the liquidations at the moment, they're taking 20 or 30 cents in the dollar. That's just what they're taking, because the alternative is they get 0. I'll give you the stats. Before COVID, the outstanding tax debt was about 44 billion. Since COVID started, and as of June 22, it's now $66 billion. It's gone up $20 billion in 3 years, which I've got plenty of graphs. I'm boring like that can show you what's going on.
What's that?
Because the ATO used to wind up, and that's all taxes. But that's what the total tax debt is. It's gone up 20 billion over COVID because the taxmen didn't do any collections. So they would wind up 2,000 companies a year. In 21, they wound up 5. So
that's gone because up 50% of that in 2 years.
Yeah, and that needs to happen. The business world has businesses that sometimes just need to be taken out of the mix because they cost everybody else money because they're not paying their bills.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a bit of that. Like no one wants to be the business that fails, but a bit of that is important to keep things ticking over. So they've done nothing. So it's a really now they're starting to realise that we've got to get out of this situation. They've got to recover some of that debt. So they're looking at taking deals for 20 or 30 cents on the dollar.
But do you not think? Do you think they're unlikely to take a deal like that because everyone else in the industry then knows the deal they've taken and just thinks, well, we don't actually have to pay the ATO. We can just go through VA and pay them 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned that, and I was thinking about that question because it's a very valid point. At the moment, they're just trying to bring the money in, but also I don't know how much it sends a message because most business people are honest people. They do not want to go through this, and if they hear a story of another company going through and getting out and paying 20 or 30 cents a dollar, administration is not a process you want to go through. You don't do it. You do it because you have to,
Right.
and the good thing is it gives you that second chance. But yeah, if I was a business owner and I saw somebody get out of it like that, I wouldn't be intentionally, because you've got to make the company insolvent. It has to be insolvent to do it. If you're already insolvent and you see somebody else got a deal for 20 or 30 cents and you go, I'm going to give that a shot, well, that's a different story. But you've got to remember 20 or 30 cents or zero is what the ATO's got to look at. And they will look at their compliance history. They'll see if these are good, honest people that haven't done this before and the business has just had a tough time, versus somebody that's a serial pest that keeps killing these companies, then that will change their vote potentially and the vote of others and even administrators casting votes. So history does play a factor as well.
Do the staff get votes?
Yeah, if they're owed money, yeah. And which they might have leave entitlements, they might have some annual leave and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they absolutely get to vote.
And each staff member counts as a person?
Yep.
So how do these meetings work?
So
they sit here and put their hand up for a vote?
It ultimately, it can come down to that or a poll where they generally now, if it's a close vote, it's supposed to be done on the voices. So everyone in the room says yay. And if there's no one opposed, then it goes through. But if it gets down to it, they'll count a poll to actually check these numbers to see what's going on. And the employees, it's a very valid point. The employees, all they want is a job. And if this is going to provide them with a job going forward versus them trying to go out and find another one, they're going to vote with their power to keep the business going. And that might be at odds with some of the other creditors that say, no, we're not interested in doing this. But generally, everybody's on the same page. If a proposal's put up and it's got legs and it's pretty good and everyone gets a fair whack of their money, no one's happy about it at all, but you sort of think, well, look, this is what we've got to do. And I imagine, I don't know your industry anywhere near like you guys, but it may well be a very close-knit industry where people do look after each other. But then also, if you burn someone, you've lost their vote too.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too, because I wonder that, and it's more of a branding question than a VA question, but like, have you seen companies go through this process and come out the other side with good relationships with their suppliers and creditors? Because like this industry, like the companies like the ones we're talking about wouldn't work without that. Like you can't, like
they need credit.
And to explain, you can't run a brewery without credit and without suppliers that you don't pay in advance. So like, have you seen companies come through that? Everyone's happy enough to continue and the business keeps going, or?
Definitely. I've seen both sides. I've seen where they come out and there's such a close-knit group and they know that this business didn't intentionally fail. They know the directors threw everything at it and for whatever the reason is, it didn't work. But the big point of difference is something has to have changed. If they're just going to do a VA and continue doing the same thing again, they're going to fail again. So there has to be a fundamental shift in the business. And that's what when we get involved, we talk to the directors, what are we doing to fix this? Because if you're just going to do the same thing again, it fails. So you work through that. So that story needs to be told to the suppliers. And if they can see, hang on, yeah, all right, these guys have changed their model. They've shifted in a big way from a particular product that wasn't selling or a number of product lines that weren't selling, and they're focusing on this and everyone's on board with that. And it comes down to that personal relationship. If they've got a great relationship with the suppliers and they say, look, and sometimes they even say, look, we're only giving you 40 cents on the dollar now, but if things get back to the way we expect they'll get back to, we'll fix you up at the back end at the end of the day. When we've come out of all of this, we won't forget how much we cost you, and we'll make sure we sort you out. So there might be conversations like that, for example. Now that's not
like an informal kind of conversation.
It's not a legal entitlement. There's no legal basis to do that, but they might just feel out of the goodness of their heart because often they're really, it's quite an embarrassing situation to be in for them. So they don't want to be there. But then conversely, on the other side, we've seen suppliers that say, we are never dealing with you again. You've burned us. And sometimes it's business comes out the other side and no one wants to supply them. And then all of a sudden their business fails anyway, because everyone said, unless you're dealing with a COD, forget about it.
Well,
I did
that's what I
I did
wondered.
that. I
Sorry,
did
go
that
ahead.
very same thing when my business went into liquidation five odd years ago and that sort of thing. Was, you know, it went into liquidation. There were creditors who were owed. And I basically had a phone conversation with him. He said, I'm going to personally pay you back once I get back on my feet. It took 6-8 months or something like that, but I did it. And because it was important to me that I made them whole rather than see them, my colleagues in the industry sort of suffer as a result of it. And it was hard work, but got there in the end and that sort of thing, and I put resolving that before I even got myself back on my own feet again and that sort of thing. So
which is quite admirable. The majority would never do that, and some do. And people that don't appreciate, it's hard to do that when you've just lost the business. You somehow got to make money from some angle to do it. And that's the kind of conversation that you can now walk across the industry and talk to anyone in the industry and hold your head high. You've done everything you can, and that sometimes is the biggest factor for directors. It's quite a sad state because the emotional stress this puts on the directors can be huge, as well as the creditors. But the directors, they're so embarrassed by all of this, and then all of a sudden they have to front up to the people that they know well and say, "Guys, this is the situation I'm in." But the earlier they do that, more chance there is to survive. If they hold on till the last minute where they've burned their suppliers because they're not paying the accounts, and the accounts are massive now. The employees have had enough because they're getting treated like crap because they're penny pinching everywhere, and even landlords and banks. If they burned everyone, there's no saving the business. It's just going to close.
But isn't that where these companies get to, like when they call you in, like?
Unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's changing slowly. But if they called us in 6 or 12 months earlier, we can put a plan in place. And I helped the business out, not in the brewery industry, but I helped the business out last year where we got in. We looked at it and we realized that cash flow was really going to be a problem. And we ended up working with them for 3 months to sell the business to a competitor. And they got the money in. The employees got shifted across to the pet competitor. Some back-end staff had to be made redundant, but they got paid. But everybody else kept their jobs. The company ended up having to go into liquidation because of some other debt, but they'd sorted out pretty much everybody. And because they did it slowly and progressively, it was a good story in the end. It did close, but it wasn't a big deal in the end, to be honest, with what was left. Whereas if he just boxed on, everyone would have not got paid, and the business would have shut up shop, and it would have been all over. So the earlier you have these conversations, and these conversations are just conversations, they're not a commitment, but then you know how the story plays out. I've got a list of stories as long as your arm of what good things people have done and what bad things that people have done. But sitting in denial is the worst one.
I think you're 100% right. That sense of feeling, you're running a business and you need help and you're embarrassed, or and just that I can 100% relate to that. It's like you just feel embarrassed for what's happened and wondering what's going to happen. Man, I packed up, and I was living in Melbourne at the time, and I just packed up and left, and I just didn't tell anyone I left Melbourne, that sort of thing. I was just gone. I was just so tail between my legs, and that was game over, and popped up in Queensland 3 months later, so.
Well, we're grateful for that, Hendo. There's a silver lining.
Really?
You've done a lot of good stuff, for sure. You've done a lot of awesome stuff for the industry in Queensland, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good fun.
Can I ask you, sorry, Chris, we touched on this earlier, but like, what are some of the common things you see in companies and people that get into this situation? Like you've mentioned, sometimes it's just, one bad project or something, but like, is it kind of like inexperienced founders, or like people who are just make stupid mistakes, or is there like a common thing amongst people that go through this?
Each is a bit different, but the big thing is they probably don't watch the numbers closely enough. When things start trending badly, making the difficult calls early. Australian, you got to love the Australian battler spirit. We all fight on to the death, and sometimes that's not the best outcome. Right. So recognizing there's a bit of a problem earlier, and talking to your accountant or your advisors or whoever it is that can say, well, hang on, this isn't looking real good, and having those difficult discussions, and having an advisor that's not a yes man, that's prepared to say, Chris, you need to pull your head in here. This isn't working, and you've got to try something different. Otherwise, this is going to go. So, recognizing those early signs instead of the biggest thing we see is this denial or this "she'll be right, mate. Things will get better." And we're all of us are reading the newspapers. We all can pretty much see what's going to happen this year. 2023 is going to be a tough year. So businesses just need to look at their financials. And you know what? Sometimes the best thing to do, we go into a business, and one of the first questions I'll ask now in these current times is, when was the last time you put your prices up? Like, oh, well,
don't say that on this show. We'll get cancelled by all of our listeners.
But if they haven't done it in 5 years, which sometimes they haven't, it's like, well, mate, everything, all your other suppliers' costs have gone up, your labour costs have gone up. You can't absorb all of that. You're running yourself into the ground. So that sometimes they haven't even thought of that. I must say, your industry is one of the toughest ones. Price is a massive challenge for you guys. And look, your industry is one that, what's going to happen this year is a lot of the discretionary spend is going to slow down a bit. People are worried about paying the mortgage. People are worried about their grocery bill, their fuel bill, all that. So what are they going to? They're going to, on their way to work, they might not stop at the cafe and get their cup of coffee every morning. They might make it at home before they go to work. They're not going to go out on date night on Saturday night with the missus because they're watching Dollar. We'll just get a pizza and eat in. So that restaurant now doesn't have a customer on Saturday night. That cafe doesn't have their coffee order every morning. And you guys in this industry, in that craft brewery, where it is in that I'm not going to say luxury item, but it is that
it's a premium product.
That's right. So the industry just needs to be mindful and just watching what's going on there, because
that's the thing. There are much cheaper beers out there than the ones that the craft brewing industry makes and sells.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I used to drink out of schooner glasses, and now I drink out of hot glasses. So.
But that's it. But look, the one good thing about your industry, I mean, I've loved craft beers for a very, very long time, and despite pulling out the Great Northern, I did have one the other day, and it just reminded me. So I could be on death's door with no money in the bank, and I'm still not buying that stuff. So,
well, that's exactly. I think that's the other thing as well, is that that craft beer has going for it is that even when times get economically tough, people still drink.
Absolutely.
Maybe not for the right reasons and that sort of thing, but people are still going to drink beer, consume alcohol, and all that sort of stuff because they just want to forget about all the stresses in life and that sort of thing.
I don't know if I like that argument for the craft beer industry. I feel like that's an argument.
Not the reason. It's not the reason why we'll survive, but I think probably what will happen, and I'm no expert on consumer behavior or anything like that, but similar shakeout happened in the US craft brewing industry in the late 90s, Chris, and. Back then, it was too many breweries, economic downturn, it was all that sort of stuff. And, it was a shakeout on quality, not on price. And consumers were choosing to drink less but better beer, pardon the pun, and rather than drinking more of, more beer and that sort of thing. So, and I think that trend's probably going to be the same here as we sort of go through this either this plateau or this downturn or whatever it is it's going to be this year. But agreed, it's going to be tough. I've had lots of conversations with lots of brewers out there, and they're all feeling it right now. And copping another interest rate rise today doesn't help. Oh, yesterday, whatever it was. So,
but I don't know the specifics of your industry in the detail. There's so many options. You walk into a craft beer section of any good quality bottle, and there's a whole. So how do these guys set themselves apart? What makes them get their beers picked? Is it just talking to people in the industry that say you need to try this one, you need to try this one, or I'm very curious on that.
The first thing we need to do is we need to get your definition of what is a good bottle-o.
Yes. Not Dan
because
Murphy,
no, seriously, if it's Dan Murphy's or BWS, anything that's associated with the major supermarkets, that's a much different way to sell beer than most craft breweries even have access to. Yeah. Because if you want to get into the Woolworths or Coles, that duopoly, supermarket duopoly in Australia, you've got to go talk to someone who's a ranging expert and understands the planogram. Because when you walk into a Dan Murphy's or a BWS, there's a plan of what beer is supposed to be where. Same with wine and spirits, but I'll just keep it to beer. the store manager says that, you know, the Black Ops Pale Ale goes here, the Your Mates Larry goes here, et cetera, and in order for a new brewery to be ranged in that store, an existing beer has to come off the shelf because it just isn't enough shelf space.
Yeah, right.
And usually in the major supermarkets, and I'm no expert on this whatsoever, but the ranging only gets done twice a year. So what comes on and what comes off the shelf and what goes on the shelf is a decision that's only happens twice a year. And so, and it takes a real sense of expertise, because once the major supermarkets are really out of reach of the small family-owned craft breweries, because most of them, because they just don't have this skill in how supermarkets buy and sell product. And that when you go and so, for example, when you go and sell your beer into Dan Murphy's or BWS, you actually have to, they give you access to their system, and you can see how much is sold at each store and all that sort of stuff. And when they're planning to reorder, and you've got to make sure you got stock so you can supply on time. It's not easy, right? To manage that, and it takes some real expertise. Independent bottle shops, however, on the other hand, different story. You know, there's an independent bottle shop that has its liquor license attached to a local brewery at the end of my street, and it's all independent beer there. You won't find really anything owned by CUB or Lion Nathan or anything like that, and that's where you get some really interesting choices. So, you know, depending on where you live, and you're more than welcome to drop us a line after the show. We'll point you in the direction of a good bottle shop that will that'll send you in the direction of getting some good independent beer, mate.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question though about how to differentiate. I think that has become
well. I guess what I'm saying is that
extremely difficult.
You know, you get a. It's the thing is, no, it kind of does, because it's really hard to answer the question: how does a brewery differentiate itself when the lens of what's available in the major supermarket, you know, BWS and Dan Murphy's and Liquorland, is not representative of all of the beer that's available.
Yeah, but it is representative of the demand for the beer, because at the end of the day, their business is in selling product, and they're better at it than anyone else in the country. So, like, it's a pretty good representation of what people want.
That's right.
And what people want is a reflection of what they see more often, and to some extent, to a reasonable extent, the quality of the product. But
yes, and to answer your question, Chris, hazy pale. Everyone wants hazy pale ale at the moment. That seems to be the going style.
And is that where it works? You just got to be in that trendy space for producing that beer at the time. Does it come down to that?
I think it's different now than it was. I think like 5 years ago,
it's changed over the years.
5 years ago, you could create a great product, have a good story and a good brand, and you could make a lot of noise. But the amount of money now that a lot of the biggest brands are owned by the majors, they've got unlimited budgets. They've got the amount of advertising you see now for craft beer, it blows my mind. Like the amount of money these companies spend getting the attention of drinkers, it's a totally different game now. It would be near impossible to come into this industry now as a genuine, you know, having a crack with a good story and a good brand without a big social media account behind you, or a big advertising spend, or, you know, people with a huge amount of money. And that's what's happening with the VAs that I'm aware of, is that, you know, they're seeing a bargain. They've got people behind them with a huge amount of money. They've seen some social media beers, and they're saying, we'll come in, we'll back it, and then we'll have a crack. And it's becoming a battle between people with lots of money or people with lots of followers.
And you've got to have really deep pockets too, Chris, when you're making beer, because, you know, from the moment you just, you know, kick off your brew day and you decide you're going to make a tank full of beer, it can take, you know, on average, around 90 days to get all your money back from that tank of beer. And if you're turning over a tank of beer every 2 weeks, right? So in that 90 days, you're making another 4 or 5 or 6 batches of beer that you have to have your hand in your pocket, you know, to get. And so the operating capital that a brewery needs is huge, right? It's huge, because the margins are so slim and the payment timelines are so long, you know, and it's really, really challenging.
Yeah, it looks like a very difficult space, and is that why some go down the hospitality road, because they get they can get the food and the tasting platters and all that sort of stuff and bring people in that way?
Yeah, exactly. So you know, if I make a 50-litre keg of beer, right? If I sell that 50-litre keg of beer to a pub, I might make $250, $300 or something like that. There are people who sharpen their pencil much more than that. Don't know how they do that. But let's say I make $250 for a 50-litre keg of beer, and I'll sell that to a pub, and it might be on 14 days credit terms, and then that pub might pay me in 14 days, but it might be 30 days or 45 days or something like that. Whereas if I make a keg of beer and I sell it over my own bar, I'm going to sell that same keg of beer for $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, and it's going to be, there's your beer, give me your money, and the cash is in the till.
Yeah.
That's a way better way to do it.
But
right?
then you're in the
margin,
then you're in the
cash,
hospital game,
cash flow.
and it's another challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so and so the downside of that is, yes, you're suddenly in the hospitality game, and you have all of the overheads related to being in a hospitality business.
Oh, and the same issue you talked about. You got three other breweries down the street
doing the same thing
like a cafe.
as you. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Exactly
most
right.
people who start breweries don't know how to run a hospitality business. And I saw a really good post from Wade Curtis, who's one of the 12, and he in another Facebook group today was talking about it's the common mistakes that people who start breweries make when they they want to open a brewery, but they open a really shitty hospitality space. And it's things like having good service and a good atmosphere, and make the place inviting, and have knowledgeable staff and all that sort of stuff. I'll see if I can pull it up, because it was actually really, what he said was really, really good. And yeah, so it's just such a bloody tough game.
And that just comes back to getting the right advice at the start. I often use the example, like I always say, when everyone is setting a business up, like they're all excited. That's great. They're enthusiastic. That's fantastic. And hopefully they've got the money. So that's great. But it's that knowledge that's key. And going to seeing their advisors, a simple thing of properly structuring the business and understanding how to structure it but people hold back going, oh, well, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars with my accountant or my lawyer. But those thousands of dollars, if things go pear-shaped, which of course we all hope they don't, can save me at the back end my house. It's as simple as that. So I say to people, would you take out fire insurance on your premises? Would you take that out? And they say, well, yeah, of course. The house the business might burn down. I'll lose everything. Oh, righto. 66 of all new businesses fail in the first 3 years. So statistically, you've got a much higher chance of losing your business than you do with the place burning down. But they don't see the value of the advice from their accountants to properly structure it, but they see the value in paying insurance on something that's almost certainly not going to happen.
A lot of accountants are dodgy, though. What advice do you have for that?
Find a good one.
What accountants are you using?
Find a good one, and don't shirk on the cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is so important to make sure your business, because when you're setting one up, particularly, you want the business plan. The commentary that you're making, Hendo, now about just understanding, well, what failures do other people do, and what lessons can you learn? So you get an expert in the field that pulls out this list that you're pulling up now and says, well, if you're hospitality, make sure you've got good staff, make sure you've got good food, make sure you've got this.
I've actually got the list here. Glassware, that's me out of the game. If you've seen my glassware. Or glassware, staff training and engagement, food offering, and quality fit out. That's what Wade said today. Designing the experience to suit non-beer drinkers is up there too. It's a hospitality business. And then he says, acoustics, especially if you're in a shed with concrete floors.
Yes. You know how expensive soundproofing is? And this has turned into an episode about starting a brewery, but that's okay.
This is not soundproofing advice.
This is not soundproofing advice. Well, that's been awesome, Chris. I think does that wrap it up, Hendo?
I want to ask one more question. I want to ask about in a voluntary administration scenario, what about the staff, and where do they stand, and what's the law with regards to the order? You know, let's say a business goes into voluntary administration or liquidation, there is a pecking order of people getting paid. What's the implications there?
Yeah, the order, it gets a little bit clouded if there's a bank owed some money. So I'll just put that one aside because it sort of mixes up the order a little bit. But basically, from all the creditors' point of view, the employees get paid first. Everything. No one else receives a dime until the employees have got their money first. So but there is a pecking order within their own entitlements. So firstly, their wages and superannuation gets paid. So if there's enough money to pay that, it moves down to the next level, which is their leave entitlement. So normally annual leave. And if that gets paid out, there's still some money left over, it goes down to redundancy and pay in lieu of notice. So if there's enough money to pay all those rungs out, then it moves down to the general creditors. The ATO is just considered a general creditor. They do lodge a claim on behalf of the employees for the super. So they do sit up there just for the super, but that's not ATO money, that's employees' money. Everybody else, ATO, all get treated equally at the bottom normally. If it's a liquidation scenario, so if the business closes down, sometimes there's not enough money to even pay the staff. Sometimes things have gone so pear-shaped that there's nothing left. A fit-out, you spoke about a fit-out before, very expensive to put in, worth nothing at the back end if you have to shut up shop. So you might have put $500,000 into a fit-out, which is basically worth zero. So there's $500,000 torn up straight away. If you shut up shop, I'm talking about, not normally, it's got its value, absolutely. In that scenario, if the employees will get looked after, the government has a program called FEG, so Fair Entitlements Guarantee. They will pay out all of the employee entitlements. There are some caps, but they're pretty high caps, and look after the staff. They don't pay the superannuation, they won't pay that, but everything else they pay. So at least the director's got some confidence if they have to make that really difficult decision to shut up shop, their staff are going to get paid. But it takes 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer, to actually have the check come through the mail, because the government's got to assess it. They've got a 21-day period to make a claim. The government assesses the claims, gives the money to the liquidators, and then liquidators pay the money out to the staff. That's the way it works generally. So that's a couple of month process. So unfortunately, it doesn't help the staff when they've got their mortgage payment the following week. Yeah, they will get their money, but they've just got to.
News though, isn't it? And it's a good system. Is it an insurance scheme, or is it just a government guarantee scheme?
So it's the government guarantee scheme that old Johnny Howard brought in when the Ansett failure happened many years ago. All those staff got made redundant and they didn't get paid. So the government in that instance stepped up and ponied up some cash, and then they put it in as a long-term thing. But the bill on this is huge. You get a big, massive company go down. Something like Virgin, if that had failed and the government had to step in there, I would hate to think how many zeros would have been on that bill. But it didn't happen. Thankfully, the airline kept going, and they did a voluntary administration. That's exactly what they did, and came out the back end. They got investors to come in and pony up some money, and we did a big one a few years ago on a cosmetics chain, Napoleon Purtis, and the same thing. We had people come in and fund it all up and keep it going. So because people see value in the brand. And so some of these breweries, if they go through this and they've got a good enough name, you might get one of the big guys come over and pick them up. And some people may not want that. The consumers may not want to see that, but it's either that or it shuts up shop. Then there may not be a lot of choice.
Brand, though. It must hurt the brand, surely.
Can do. Yeah.
Depends, yeah. It depends on that, how you sort of come out the other end and that sort of thing. So
that's interesting you say that. Like, I guess the average person probably maybe wouldn't know or care whether Virgin had been through a voluntary administration. Like,
not anymore. I still follow them.
Yeah.
Don't even think about it.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah, and that's the same with the breweries. They get, people say, well, we don't want to see them taken over by one of the big guys. But if it's that or it disappears, if I'm a director of that company, I'd rather keep it going in some format. And Hendo, you're spot on the money. People forget 6 months later, 12 months later, it's yesterday's news, and they're still going. But critically, they're still paying their rent at the tenancy. They're still producing beer. They're buying stock from suppliers. They're contributing to the entire business community. But there has been some pain. There always has to be some pain, unfortunately.
100%. And the pain is for a lot of the smaller guys further down the line that don't get their money and their business is then put under pressure. So it just can't be like an easy out for a company.
That's a very valid point. The domino effect can be quite catastrophic. So if you're a small guy and you're supplying to people, don't let the debt get out. If they haven't paid their last invoice, don't give them anything more, and be that loud barking dog saying, I'm not giving you anything until you pay your last account. Forget about it, because if you give it to them again, they'll always have the story of, oh no, she'll be right. We've got a bit of a tough patch, but we'll make it through. Well, what if they don't? And then your bill, you've just given them 3 months worth of stock. You haven't been paid for 3 months, and all of a sudden that makes a massive impact on your own business. With what's going on,
there's no government bailout for a company that's just like doesn't get paid when they should be getting paid.
No,
every business, especially a brewing business, needs a rock solid credit policy.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And sticks to it. You
have to have a credit policy, and a lot of people just don't even think about it. But it's like, man, if you're selling beer to, if you're selling beer to all of the customers, the liquor industry customers we sell beer to, they get paid the moment that they sell our beer, right? You drop a keg off and it gets tapped. They're getting cash in the till for your beer that day. And it's like, well, why aren't they paying me? That's my beer. You got the cash, fucking pay me, And
if they're not, that's a massive alarm bell should be ringing off. So don't give them any more credit. Say, you know what? I'll give you some more, but you got to pay COD until you bring your old account up to date. And you need to be that ruthless. Worst case scenario, they don't buy some stock from you and they go somewhere else. But if they're doing that, there's a bigger problem going on behind the scenes anyway. Yes. And you'd rather tap out, move on.
Yep. That's what happens with a lot of venues. I'm not poking the stick at the bloody hospitality industry and that sort of thing, but it's a really interesting thing with hospitality venues is that before craft beer, there was only 2 places where you could buy beer. It was either Lion or CUB, right? 4X or CUB or whatever it was back in the day, right? And they operate on very strict 7-day terms, and they own all the taps. So if you don't pay them in 7 days, they cut you off, and all of a sudden you got no beer to sell over your bar. So, and they have a very, very strict credit policy in that regard. And so, and also the same goes for, we have the wholesalers now like Paramount and that sort of thing, right? A lot of hospitality venues just want one invoice at the end of the month or whatever for what they bought, because it just makes doing their books easier. But then what can happen is that they can shop around all the different craft breweries and go, because every craft brewery wants to get a new tap or a new distribution, right? And all of a sudden they're selling beer, they're doing deals, they're doing like 2+1 keg deals and all that sort of stuff. And then that person's not paying. And so you cut them off and they go to the next brewery and do the same thing, right? And that's just that. I'm not saying that happens with every venue, but I have seen that, quite a lot, before. So it's amazing stuff. We're all reliant on each other at the end of the day, aren't we? So I suppose that's cash flow. We're all intertwined.
I've run a few country pubs over the years, just doing what we do, where they've had, because they can do it pretty tough too. We've had scenarios where there's been a bit of confusion when we've become involved, and all of a sudden the beer doesn't show up the next day, and it's like, oh, we're in a country pub, we must have the beer. Move heaven and earth, get it here, we'll pay your bill, we'll do what you got to do. But they're just going, what you're saying before, you don't pay, you're gone, cut off. And that just cripples a business.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go, Chris, I forgot, I did put a thread in the group and ask for questions, and we normally just get shit posts only, but I'll try and wade through them and just fire a few quick ones at you that aren't shit posts. Jack, do you mind a couple more minutes?
No, absolutely. Happy to help.
Jacob Gordon, icebreaker for Chris. What's your favorite shit beer? Hollandia, Sapporo, etc. Well, we answered that one because it's Great Northern.
It's Great Northern.
That was an easy one. Paul James, question 1. Are there published outcomes from a VA? So can people access a document or something that explains what happens?
Normally the creditors are the ones that get told. So they're the ones that are entitled to the report. You guys mentioned in your last podcast, you can get this stuff off the ASIC. That's the only way to get the information, and you do generally have to pay for it. So outside of that, unless it's that big, which Ballistic, for example, did get a bit of media coverage. But I learned more from what's going on in that job from you, Hendo, in your last podcast than I did from the media. So no, unless it's a really big matter like Virgin or something, the media is not really going to latch onto it, which means you've got to go through basically, if you're a creditor, you'll get sent the information, or if you know someone that's a creditor, you'll get the information that way. But otherwise, no, it doesn't get really published in any public place other than the ASIC.
Okay. Steve Brockman, explain a docker. Does every company in VA go through a docker?
So what the DOCA is, that's the proposal. That's the outcome. VA or voluntary administration is this 1 month period roughly where you go in and you formulate this proposal, this plan that's going to come out. What the plan or the proposal is called, it's called the DOCA. Deed of company arrangement is the DOCA. So when you get to this vote, this magical vote that happens, if the creditors vote in favour of taking the deal that's been put on the table, then it turns into a deed of company arrangement or turns from a VA to a DOCA. If they don't like the deal, then they'll vote to put the company into liquidation and it'll go down that ugly road. So DOCA is the outcome of the meeting, and then it depends on what the proposal is. So sometimes the proposal for a DOCA might be some white knight comes in line, Nathan comes in and says, we're going to buy the whole lot. Here's a check for $1 million, give that to your creditors. There's one payment, you receive the money, you pay your creditors out and the company moves on. Or it could be the opposite, which is they'll pay it from profits over the next 2 years. So every month after paying all their expenses, they'll lob into the deed administrator a check for 20 grand, and that gets pulled up over 2 years and then paid out to the creditors. So they're the two ways they normally work.
Nice. Okay, I've got a few more. There's actually some pretty good questions in here. Luke Cooper, question: is there an involuntary administration process, or is that just liquidation of a business without an attempt to repay debt?
Well, the best thing you always do, so involuntary, I suppose, or informal, is call your creditors up and just say to them, we're struggling this month, but we're going to be good next month, and have a basis for that, and try and manage that a little bit. But if you've got more than one debt, that's going to get problematic. So the ways your company can be shut down, I suppose, or wound up. Voluntary means you go in and you say, I want to do this VA, this voluntary administration, or I want to do, there's another regime which we won't talk about today, but it's called small business restructure. It's a much better option than a VA for businesses that have got less than $1 million worth of debt. Much cheaper, much easier, different scenario, but the same outcome. So you do those voluntarily, or you say, you put your hands in the air and say, I'm going to liquidate the company voluntarily. The way that it does get done involuntarily is where someone takes you to court, sues you, and puts your company into liquidation on you because you haven't paid them. So right. The involuntary one is where the courts do it. So that happens quite frequently as well.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a dog just like just jumping on me right now. But
at least
is that a staff?
Okay. No, he's say hello, you little bastard. Say hello. He's an American bulldog. Say hello to me. Say hello to him.
I can smell him from here.
He stinks. He stinks so bad. Go away. He's very
cool. Bath that bloody. He doesn't bath his dog, Chris.
But I've got an outdoor shower going in. So Krugs, if you're listening to this, put my fucking outdoor shower in because that's Elon's bath. That's what we're going to do. That's going to be the bath. Go away. Oh God, sorry.
Hit us with another question.
All right. Angus Grant. Full disclosure, I'm the IT manager at Worrells, but I think I'm asking balanced questions, not just questions favourable to Worrells. Cheers to Angus for hooking this up. Wow, these are very fast questions. Requirements to start a bit. I think we've covered that. Value to employees, creditors during a VA versus liquidation. Have we covered that? Value to employees, creditors during a VA versus liquidation.
Yeah, I think so. That's when we sort of spoke about how if you keep it going, they keep their jobs. That's their desired outcome. Whereas if it goes to liquidation, they're going to lose their job. They don't really want that. But the government will pay them. So that's the outcome. They do get paid. So yeah, I think we probably tick that one off.
Yeah. What info can be released, published during the process?
Probably comes what we were just saying before. If you're a creditor, you'll get copies of the reports that the administrators release. But really, other than that, it doesn't go too much further unless it's one that's attracted the media.
Right. And in that case, they can just buy a copy of it and report on whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. When is Chris going to buy a motorbike again?
That's definitely
a great question.
Yeah, when you have kids, your priorities change. So not for a little while, Gus. I'll have one soon enough.
What about a scooter? Hendo,
you need a scooter.
Exhaust. Show them your Italian exhaust.
I've got my Italian exhaust sitting here and my big bore kit. I'll just get the big bore kit out. So I just bought a Piaggio Zip 50cc 2-stroke, and I've just bought the Molossi 70cc big bore kit. I reckon I can get this this thing going 80 k's an hour, and that's as fast as I want it to go because it's only got 10-inch wheels.
Yes. Oh, very good.
It's better than this. See that phone cover up there?
Mhm.
Oh, I've got this phone cover here. So I used to have a Japanese scooter, and I went and ordered a big bore kit off Alibaba. And instead of getting a big bore kit, I got this phone cover, and you can see it's got Japanese writing on it.
Yeah.
And in Japanese that says "bad girl."
Oh dear.
Oh, you need to listen to the show, man. We just
No,
do
no,
dumb. Actually,
don't,
I do
don't.
dumb shit.
Sounds like he's done his research and listened to one episode, and that's enough.
I did listen to the last one, yes.
All right, cheers, Chris. That was awesome. That was
Thank
one
you
of the
so
best
much,
episodes
Chris.
we've
That
ever
was
done. That was amazing.
That was very enlightening, and don't envy your job at all, but keep up the great work, mate. And thank you so much for sharing with us today.
100%.
No, thanks. And look, it's great that you guys are talking about some of these different things for the community at large. So you guys have got a great little podcast, and I think I'm going to have to dial in and become a listener as well. It's
one of the 12. There
You're
we
welcome
go.
to be one of the 12 anytime.
Yeah, that's it. No, well done, boys, and thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers,
Have
Chris.
a good night.
See you later, guys. See ya.
Oh, that was good.
It was good.
What a legend.
Wow, I learned a lot.
I learned a lot too.
Yeah.
That was a dump at the end there. We've got to get some of this video out in social media, mate. We've got to put it on the Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. That
High
was
quality content.
It was pretty amazing stuff. I was like, no wonder everyone last week at the ballistic thing was just so confused when they walked out, because I didn't know the votes worked that way.
But wouldn't that have happened at the thing? Like, did they not say like vote?
I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like it's really tumultuous and confusing, but there's a method to the madness or something.
Like, you spoke to a lot of people who were there. Did they physically put their hand in the air or like yell out?
Yeah, they were there.
Okay,
so they all walked out going, thought it was in liquidation, not an adjournment.
Because
Crazy.
more people said, but I guess so if more people voted liquidation, but the higher debt, the higher money creditors didn't, then it's in balance, right?
Yeah, but it could have been the administrator herself, the administrator themselves who had the casting vote says, nope, we're not making a decision today, we're adjourning.
Well, if they did that, everyone would have known that.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, I ought to be a fly on the wall, I suppose. So yeah.
Yeah. I need to go to the toilet.
Thanks for sharing. I'm going to get another VB then.
All right, I'm going to pause this and come back in a second. Sorry, I had a few jobs to do there. Not those kind of jobs, just like
what the fuck?
kids have to be put to bed and that kind of stuff. And I had to get another beer.
That's old school Forex. Oh.
That's an old school Forex glass with wine in it.
She's done. Oh, classic.
All right.
Classic.
Do you want to get to the other topics, or do you think that's enough for a week? It's a solid episode.
That was a solid episode.
You can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do the 12 questions.
Okay. Well, I think I've gone through.
Give us the shitpost questions.
There was a few shit posters. Not too many, actually. Oh, Damien Rigby, question, what lowercase w, paint color is the best to use if I want to avoid entering a VA? That's pretty good. I didn't ask that.
That's a great question.
I didn't ask that question. That was a good one.
I've got the answer. It's the paint you can fucking pay for, mate.
True. Darren Giddens replied with what would be a funny reply, except he fucked it up. He said, it has to be the hog's breath, right?
Because it's cheap, because nobody buys it except you.
You missed what he got wrong.
What did he get wrong?
I'll repeat it.
What?
Has to be the hog's breath, right? You don't see what he got wrong?
Hog's bristle.
Hog's bristle.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Hog's breath is where you go buy a steak.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
Get it right.
All right. Is the VBX just poor man's Cooper Sparkling?
Well, I'm going to go try it this week. So,
all right.
I'll give you a written report in triplicate.
Why don't we do a tasting on? We got a list of subjects for next week's show. So why don't we do a live?
We can do a live, do a live tasting. Why not?
Yeah, keen for that. Darren Gittins, have ballistic workers been paid yet? Well, I don't know about that situation, but we answered how the process works. So that's
still ongoing. So we don't know.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Nice work.
I know we're doing real quality shit here. It was good.
I know.
Well, we're not. We're just listening, but.
Well, I'm just gonna salvage my big bore kit and my exhaust because I dropped the big bore kit on the exhaust.
Oh God!
And hopefully I'll get a chance to put it together if I don't have too bad of a hangover on Sunday.
All right, mate. Enjoy Juicy Fest.
Cheers, man.
See you, mate.